Okay, so in today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about online payments. Namely, how do you get your virtual assistants, your PAs, or your staff to make online payments for you, or pay your staff, or whatever it is that you want to do with transactions using your credit card, or your debit card, using PayPal, etc. How do you actually set all that up and allow other people to do all that work for you without putting yourself at risk? Okay, so I'm going to cover in this episode a few different ways that you will surely use to pay people, whether it's for services, for products, whether it's your staff, online, and how you can actually give that work to somebody else safely and securely without risking them rinsing your bank account. We're going to cover card purchases, PayPal, Amazon, standing orders, BACS payments, and also paying your overseas staff or wages as well. So we'll kick off with card purchases, and these are, buying anything online when you're using a debit card or a credit card. Now, I don't want to, you can do this if you want, but I don't want to give my staff a credit card or a debit card that's linked to my main account for hopefully obvious reasons. There's a chance that they may, go on a shopping spree themselves. So the way I do this and get my virtual staff to be able to make debit card and credit card payments for me is to set up a prepaid card which is in their name or in a company name, and then give them access to that. So we use FairFX Business. There are loads of other providers out there, but what that allows me to do is to set up an account and add users, as many users as I want. Each of them can have a card assigned to them, and I can move balances from one card to another really easily. Therefore, the amount of my liability or the risk that I'm putting myself in by giving someone that card is only the balance on that card. And so therefore I can limit that by just saying, look, I'm just going to put £100 on it or £1,000 on it or dollars or whatever you work in. And so therefore you can at least sleep safely at night knowing they've not got access to your main bank account. PayPal is another means that you can use to get someone to do payments for you. And the way we do this again safely is to use that prepaid card we set up before, and we set up the payment option on our PayPal account with that prepaid card. We don't have a link to a bank account. We have it linked to that payment card. It's just a PayPal account we use for making purchases. And therefore, again, you're limiting the liability to the balance on that card, because when that card hits zero, the transaction will be returned unpaid or whatever. It'll bounce and it won't actually make the payment. So you're not going to actually run any debt up. You can't do that in that account. And we use a business PayPal account as well, because then that allows us to add admin users to do things like run reports and print off statements or whatever we need to do for accounting purposes. So we get our business prepaid card set up, and then we set up a PayPal account with the payment method being that business credit card. But also you can do something clever with Amazon as well. So even if you've just got a normal Amazon account, not even a business account or anything clever like that, you can set up an Amazon account, and then instead of putting your credit card details on there, again, you could use the prepaid card to do this, but if there is another way, if you don't have a prepaid card, and that is to just load that Amazon account with gift vouchers. So I have an Amazon account set up purely for the reason of my staff buying books and Audible books, etc., for educational purposes when they're working with us. And I load that up with typically a £100 gift voucher. I then remove my card details from that account, and then the staff are then free to use that money to purchase books or, as I say, whatever it is that they need for the purposes of working in the business. And obviously, if you use Amazon for buying other stuff, you could do something similar. And then you're limiting your liability to whatever you've loaded that up with. If someone does a shopping spree, it's only whatever you've actually loaded on there. So another way you need to make payments sometimes is by BACS. And this is probably the one I really hate the most, or standing orders as well, because you have to log in, you have to put the recipient's details into their bank account number, their sort code, etc. Then often have to say, is this really the person you want to send it to? What type of transaction is it? Anti-fraud thing, they ask you to check again. Then you get your card reader out, you put your card reader details in, you mess it up, and all that can take sort of 5 or 10 minutes just to make a quick BACS payment. Maybe this is for, when I used to have a lot of dealings with my properties, it would be paying my builders. They didn't have a credit card facility. I couldn't pay them by credit card. They wanted a bank transfer. And so that's what BACS payments are. And now if you've got a decent business banking app, you can actually get your staff to do all that hard work for you without putting yourself at any risk at all. So we use HSBC Business. Another one which I've heard has this functionality and works well is Revolut, but I've not actually used it yet. And that is the ability to add users to that account. And then those users can have different levels of access and to enable them to do different things. And you can also, for example, set them up so they can make or set up your online payments for you, but not actually approve them. Or you could say they can set up your online payments or your bank transfers up to a certain limit and it'd be approved for, say, £100 or $100 or $1,000 or £1,000 or whatever. And therefore, you can limit your liability by limiting the amount that person can then spend at any one time by making a BACS payment. But even if you set them up with zero limit, so every transaction has to be approved by you, the hard work's done by your member of staff, and then you simply log into your app. So what I do is I get my PA to ping me a message saying, hey Steve, there's some transactions ready for you to approve. I'll log into my app, open it up and just click, 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 approve, and they're done. So it takes me literally seconds to do what used to take me 5 or 10 minutes. And I always talk about this with 10 minutes. It only takes me 10 minutes. I'll just do it myself. But 10 minutes a day adds up to a week of your working life every single year. So every 10 minutes you waste, just think that could be a week of my life I could claim back if I could just get someone else to help me. So all these little 5 and 10 minutes add up to significant time over the course of a year. We have just a sort of a couple of non-recommendations. So we had Tide Bank for a while and that didn't have any functionality to add users, so we ditched that. We do actually have a Metro account, but to add someone as a user, you have to upgrade to their corporate account. It costs around 50 quid a month just for that functionality. And it's a real pain. You have to fill out a paper form and send it in. It's not easy. HSBC was much, much simpler, and I believe Revolut is even simpler. But again, I can't say that for sure because I've not actually used it yet, but I'm actually going to set a Revolut account up in the near future to try it out. And the last thing I want to just discuss is paying wages to your overseas staff. So we've got a staff that live all over the world. So from the Philippines, from South Africa, from India, all working in different currencies. I live in Sweden. My bank account's in the UK. We have clients all over the world as well. And so we were very conscious about the cost of paying people in different currencies. Obviously, people want to receive the money in their own currency so they can actually go and spend it without them being charged a fortune. And if you're paying someone, say, in the Philippines and you're paying them, a few $100s a month, and then they get charged $50 or something for transactional fees, they're not going to be really happy. And so we want to take the cost of that because we think it's fair. We pay them and they receive the money that they thought they were going to get paid on an hourly rate and not that minus some fees. But we want to keep those fees to an absolute minimum. You can use PayPal to do this. So when we started out, we used PayPal. It's simple. Everybody's got a PayPal account. You've probably got a PayPal account. You just literally say who you want to pay, what currency you want to pay them in, and off it goes. Unfortunately, the cost of PayPal is really, really expensive when you compare it to the one we use now, which is Transferwise. And Transferwise, or actually it's been rebranded now, it's now called Wise. It's a similar idea. You can basically transfer money anywhere in the world. The fees are far, far less than any bank account, and they're significantly less than a PayPal account as well. It is linked to a bank account, or the way that we have it set up is. So what we do is we have a separate bank account in our main, our bank, our Metro Bank, and that is just for our staff wages. And therefore, then I transfer a fixed amount into that account each month. I know what my wage bill is going to be roughly, so I have a standing order that goes into that account, and therefore, again, my liability is limited to the amount in that wages account. It's not, my main bank account or my savings account or anything like that. And then my PA logs into my Wise account, actually via her account. So she has her own account set up and she logs in via her account. I don't want to share my main details with her. So she logs in and she's a user on my account. And then she sets up and makes those transactional payments. Now, for a cost comparison or the cost of making that sort of payment. So I have my marketing, one of my marketing team is based in South Africa, and she gets paid around $1,400 a month. And the cost of doing that transaction through Transferwise is around £6. So that works out around less than 1%, about 0.7% or thereabouts. That is ridiculously less than, if you're going to go to a bank and do a Swift payment or whatever, and they charge you sort of £20 or £30 for doing it. And if you're doing it every month or multiple payments each month, these costs significantly add up. So that's a massive, massive saving over the course of a year, especially if you're doing multiple transactions. One thing with the way we do the Wise to get that really cheap rate, if you have a go and you don't see, you're getting that cheap rate, if you select what to pay by debit card, it will actually charge you more. If, on the other hand, you select to pay by bank transfer and then get your VA or your PA to actually make that transfer for you, then you don't have to do any more work, but it actually reduces the cost significantly. So we set the transaction up in Transferwise, and then my PA can then do the bank transfer into the specific account, and then that is then transferred over to the recipient, usually within 2 or 3 days. So it's pretty quick as well. So that's it. That's my summary of how we've managed to outsource pretty much all of our online payments: credit cards, debit cards, PayPal, Amazon, bank transfers, standing orders. I didn't mention actually standing orders, but the same sort of thing goes as when I was talking about before with bank transfers. And also paying your staff overseas and keeping your costs as low as possible. So that's it. I hope you found that helpful. If you have, remember to like this podcast, and please subscribe if you're watching this on either YouTube or you're listening to this on the podcast. Thanks very much.